Hey, welcome to episode number 37 of Red River Podcast. Today, back at it. It's just Langen's on vacation, actually.
Yeah, it's like an empty seat.
Yeah, I just poured some coffee in his seat, in his absence. So me and Parker are handling things, and today we have the singer of The Last Stand, as well as Inhuman, and basically the mayor of Brooklyn. It seems like from Long Island. So Michael Scondotto, what's up, man?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Very good. I know that we've been trying to schedule this. There were times where I just wanted to get in the car and just be like, fuck you, I'm going to go to your apartment. I'm going to set up some mics, and we're going to fucking talk. But,
Yeah. I know it's a long time coming, but thanks for having me. I'm glad we're able to finally get this going.
Yeah, well, I wanted to have you on because you're like, there's certain people that you admire from afar, and I admire you from afar because we're almost the same age, and you try to do, basically what I try to do, which is just stay active, stay creative, constantly playing in bands. You have your own podcast, and, you do a lot of stuff, and take a lot of cool pictures. So I wanted to touch upon some of that for shits and giggles, because sometimes people listen to the show and they don't know who certain people are, or it's like an introduction. Who the fuck knows who knows who's listening? I scan and it's like people from Ireland and all these random motherfuckers. So
no, of course, man. I get it. Yeah.
Tell me, let's just take it from the beginning, because I don't really know much about you. Anthony Ventuscinque, a.k.a. The Watch. He's the one
Another mayor right there.
He's the mayor of Long Island.
I don't know. It might be tied for him and Ron Grimaldi, though.
Oh.
Yeah. Ron is everywhere.
Probably almost every 90s hardcore picture right there.
Yeah, those two.
Nah.
So let's take it to the beginning, man. When did you start playing music, and what made you want to grab the mic to sing?
I actually started playing music in '86. I was 12, going on 13, and a big catalyst for that was this kind of cable access show that was on. It was a cable access channel called U68, and they had the heavy metal power hour on throughout the summer of '86, every day of the week actually it was on. And around that time I was in a predicament because I was hit by a car at the beginning of the summer.
Holy shit, how old were you? Oh, you said 12, 13? Wow.
Yeah, I was 12. Yep. I was 12, 2.5 months shy of 13. And this was, the mid 80s. So they had the tremendous plaster old school cast on my leg that went from my toes all the way to my upper thigh because my leg was shattered in 3 places. So I had a lot of free time on my hands that summer. I was a music fan then. I kind of was already listening to rock and metal, but not nearly as much as I was going to get submersed in it, that year, my brother John, even earlier than that, going back to 83, 84, I'm 11, and he's about, he's 2 years older than me. He was in metal bands very young, actually, and he was a singer. I liked metal then, but I don't know. I was too young to be a metalhead. You're 11.
You posted
right?
You posted a picture of something that you filled out when you were about this age, right?
16. That's when I was 16. Yeah.
So
that was Metal Maniacs, 1989 readers.
Nice.
This guy saves everything. And if you're not Facebook friends with him,
I am.
You're missing out on so much fucking good stuff because it's he pulls shit from 1980, whatever the fuck, and you're like, how the fuck did this guy know?
I like it.
So, but go ahead, keep going.
The thing is this: I was never that good at sports. Some of my other brothers were good at sports, and I just kind of was like, you know what? I think I love music more than anything. Like music was what got me through being on a couch for 90 something days in the heat. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And just kind of watching that. We didn't even have cable yet. Cable wasn't even in the neighborhood yet, by the way. That's the other funny part.
I remember.
You know, music and, you know, watching movies on a VCR just kind of really saved me, you know, the kid.
And that's kind of like where you are now, because you're like me. Like we're both so immersed in music and movies, which is why you're talking on this podcast, because
I mean, I guess when you stick with something you like, you really stick with it, right? But my friends at the time, John Lamacchia, who's in Candiria, and my friend Tom, they picked up guitars in this same year. And I was like, well, we can't have 3 guitar players. So
sure you can.
Yeah. Well, we weren't aware of jam bands, and we wanted to play metal, and we didn't know of any metal bands that had 3 fucking guitar players. So I was like, you know what? I like Nicky Sixx a lot, and he's the bass player. I like Steve Harris.
Yeah.
On Iron Maiden, he's the bass player. I'll be the bass player. That's kind of how I became the bass player.
I think that's how many bass players became bass players. Like only
process of elimination.
Only like a certain few are like, I'm gonna play bass, but it's usually like just by elimination. It's like, well, everyone picked every seat, so I guess I want to hang out.
And the other thing is, this is in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, where I grew up. A music store had opened up right on Sheepshead Bay Road, you know, where the stores were. And it was like a metal store. It sold instruments, but it also sold metal shirts and pins and posters. And sure enough, they gave lessons. So I would go and take bass lessons on crutches with the huge cast. And my 2 buddies, John and Tom, would also take their guitar lessons all that summer as well. I mean, we took lessons well into 87, you know, 88 actually.
Did those lessons actually like help you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think so. Did
they teach you like theory?
I learned, you know, what some notes were. I mean, back then I probably could read music a little bit. But they definitely helped me. They helped me with picking, and they helped me with, like, you know, just kind of learning about things. Like one of the guys who was there was like this cooler, older metalhead guy, and you know, it was like a lot of people's musical stories, you know, only it's my musical story, you know, like I just think being in the neighborhood we were in, I mean, you know, Sheepshead Bay in the 80s was not a metal hotbed. It was a lot of Guidos and, you know, the metalheads and anyone who liked punk or hardcore were certainly like the outcasts of the day.
What'd your parents think?
They were okay with it. My dad was the biggest Elvis fan on the planet, and growing up, all we heard in the house was Elvis and the Rolling Stones, and he also liked the pop music of the day, actually, Paul and Oates, and you know, like whatever hit singles were going on. Okay. Chances Dad bought, which is kind of interesting. Definitely didn't like pop music as the decades went on. In the 80s, he liked pop music. By the 90s, I think he was punched out. 90s. He was punched out of pop. He liked modern pop of the 80s. He liked Rick Springfield. Yeah, he was like a weird guy. Like he went from kind of one extreme to the next, which definitely probably rubbed off on me, because that's where my tastes, you know, lie. But the music thing started with our brothers. No one in our family were singers or musicians. They started with me, John, and Mark. So, you know, where that came from, we all just kind of tie it back to Dad's nonstop record playing all throughout our lives, probably.
I mean, that's crazy when you really think about, like, there's 5 of you, right?
Yeah.
And only the older one didn't really do music, right?
Right, Joe. Joe is a banker.
Joe's a banker. He's the smart one.
Yeah, he's laughing all the way to the bank now.
Okay. John was in a you know, young kid band first, and I had a band called Close Call in 88, 89. And then John joined the Maximum Penalty at the very beginning of 1990. Because John could sing. John could always sing.
John could really. His brother, later on, went into a band, which he would always send me. Like your brother John would always send me this, but it was always on YouTube. Was Symmetry? What was it called?
Synthetic 16.
Synthetic 16. Okay, the fucking. It's basically it's like this like culmination of like everything that I would listen to, but on YouTube, like I always listen to stuff on Spotify or something. I never listened to it on YouTube. And then one day driving home from Brooklyn, I promised your brother, because I told him I saw you when we played out in the beer garden. And I listened to this album and I'm just like, fuck. I'm like, this is so fucking good. His brother could sing so goddamn good.
And they had a good thing going for a while. And, the band imploded like many bands tend to.
But the most important part about that is the cover.
Yes. The cover ties into movies, of course.
Oh,
now,
Spider Babe.
As an aside, I'll tell you how that even came to be. John and I were big horror fans, still big horror fans. And when John was living in, Brooklyn at the time, I think it was the 98 or 99 Fangoria convention. Horror convention used to actually be in Manhattan once upon a time. They long ago ceased to be in Manhattan, just Jersey now. They started out in Manhattan, and there was a table. These two kind of odd-looking dudes with two very pretty girls at the table, young pretty girls, and it was called Factory 2000, and they were hawking these super independent movies that they made, that four people sitting at the table made in the outskirts of Jersey somewhere, and they were just like B-grade horror movies, but they had this beautiful girl in them on all the box covers named Misty Monday.
Yep.
I mean, people were like, oh, these are $10 each. Let's buy a fucking couple of these movies. And that's kind of how it began. Like, we saw them, I think, like the following year or whatever. And I guess at some point, a conversation was struck up about the fact that we were in bands, because we didn't, hey, we're in bands the moment we meet them or whatever. Because I was an Inhuman then, and John was doing Synthetic back then. So, and I pretty much, I guess, just one day when Synthetic was making the record, about to make the record, John was like, I have this great idea. Let's ask, I'm going to ask Misty Monday to be on
Great idea, for sure. Yeah, because
before she blew up.
Oh, absolutely.
Blew up kind of after that. This is a year or two into that Factory 2000 era. And it was kind of after that she made all those dozens of spoof movies and softcore stuff and things like that. I mean, these movies that were kind of had like softcore sex in them, but not really. They were more kind of focused on like weird horror, fetishy.
Very interesting stuff. Because I remember I posted, like, everyone was doing like 10 album covers. So what I decided to do was do movies. So one day I posted, my first one was Spider Babe. And your fucking brother was like, let me tell you a story about this. And then that's when he explained to me. And I was like, what are the chances? The first movie I pick, man. And it's like, I've never met your brother, but like we're so connected in like the strangest ways that it's like, I don't know him, but I love that guy.
Well, that's the thing. It's funny. Like, time goes on and I kind of my tastes get a bit heavier, out of like the standard heavy metal. You graduate into thrash metal at some point, as people of a certain age and era tended to do. And it was all about Anthrax, Metallica, Slayer, Nuclear Assault, and, things like that. And my friends and I, we were the BMX riders, like BMX thrash metal kids in the neighborhood. And there were these, what we thought, punk rock skateboard kids in the neighborhood. They were only like a year or two older than us. And we became friends, First it was a little standoffish because we were metalheads, even though everybody has short hair, of course. And they were like, well, we're not punk rockers. I'm like, well, what do you mean you're not punk rockers? We're hardcore kids. And we're like, what the fuck is a hardcore kid? And that's right around the time when I get my first mixtapes made for me. at the very beginning of '88, actually. And that just really kind of pretty much makes me drop thrash metal for dead, honestly. Like hearing the Bad Brains and Warzone and Sick of It All and Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front, the Breakdown and Crumpsuckers, all on one tape, mind you, all of their, releases of the time on one 90-minute tape. I was just like, this is the greatest music I've ever heard in my life. I was like, it's faster than thrash metal. It's a little angrier than thrash metal. And the way hardcore was explained to me by these new friends of mine, it was like, yeah, all these guys, there's no rock stars. There's no high door prices. You get to jump off the stage. The band is in the crowd. But like, I don't know, the way it was explained to me, I guess, as like a 14-year-old, I was just like, this is unbelievable. And I finally got to my first show in May of '88. I'm a freshman. The year is almost over, the school year. And I sneak out. I say I'm sleeping at a friend's house. And I gave my parents a fake phone number. I thought call, but of course they called it because their 14-year-old is staying at a strange friend from high school's house. Now, but that night, I saw Super Touch, Token Entry, Murphy's Law, and Bad Brain at the Ritz. And
wow,
that,
88
like,
too.
The deal had kind of already been sealed, but that really sealed the deal,
Who stole the show that night?
Probably Murphy's Law, because oddly enough, as great as Bad Brains were, this was when they had their first of 3 replacement singers in that band. H had quit the band a month or so before for the first time. And a guy named Taj, T-A-J, was the singer that night. He was awesome, though. He was really good. He kind of looked like HR. He definitely sang like HR. But I did not get to see him with HR until about a little under a year later at Lemoore. I think Murphy's Law was like unfucking real that night. They had, it was with them, Todd Youth on guitar, and it was like the lineup of like Back with a Bong, like prime era Murphy's Law, and it was just so great. But I was a huge Token Entry fan, and they were amazing as well. I was a Super Touch fan also. Like it was unbelievable kind of night for a 14-year-old kid with an ID that said he was 16.
And then that kind of just like set it forward right there. I mean, did you leave there thinking like, I need to start a hardcore band?
Yes. Well, actually, it's funny because the band's roots were already kind of getting started of playing hardcore music, because I was already playing like thrash metal. Like I was already a bass player, So what's funny is about not even 2 months later, I joined up with some other kids in the neighborhood. My friend, this dude James on drums, and this dude Chris on guitar, and the skinhead dude Ray. And they had a band called Direct Approach, and they needed a bass player. And I was like, oh, I'm a bass player. I can play bass. And they just kind of took me in, and they're like, listen, we're going to be on this compilation. I'm like, what? Really? We haven't even played a show. Yeah. My friend Freddie and this dude Chaka are putting on a compilation called the New Breed compilation, and we're going to be on it, and we got to get these 2 songs ready. I went, okay. I'm 15. I'm like, sure. Okay, let's do it. We did it. The songs were as ready as they could be. And by like the beginning of August of '88, we're at Don Fury Studios recording 2 songs live for a band that had just formed, that had never played a single show.
And you're 15. You said you were 15?
Yeah, I'm 15 years old.
And
correct.
this has to be the first time you've ever recorded, right?
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
And did you guys?
First time I've ever recorded, and it's funny. Like I remember it now, going downstairs into that. His studio was in the Village, or literally, I can't remember. Demo Studios. Don Fury was like the coolest looking dude back then. He had like this kind of pompadour, and like he'd already kind of produced a bunch of hardcore records already. But I remember like Chaka from Burning Orange Mind was there. The dude Freddie was there, and I'm the youngest dude in the room, I think. Or I think Chris might have been 1 year older than me. Chris went on to form Marauder a little while later. His name was Karate Chris, was his nickname. He was the first guitar player with Saab and Marauder. And I was just like, I don't know, I think I was just kind of in awe of everything, but we recorded them. We did not get more than one take. And there are fuck-ups on the songs. These songs are on, iTunes, and it came out as like this 20th anniversary thing in 2009 on CD and vinyl, and you could hear these songs. The band's called Direct Approach. It's called the New Breed compilation, and the band broke up like weeks later. We never played one fucking show.
Oh man!
But, like the comp has Killing Time and Breakdown. It's got amazing bands on it. Then it's got these like young kids that they are.
That's a great first thing to be on.
I would love to see that picture if anybody ever took a picture of that.
They're called No Respect and True Vision. You could, they're on Apple Music, they're on Spotify. It's pretty wild. But like a few months, maybe a month or two after that, the Close Call band forms with me and John and Tom and our friend Mark on vocals and Wayne on drums. And that was like the first proper band, in my opinion, Direct Approach was almost like a goof. It just happened. And it was just, our singer knew the right people, and we ended up on this compilation, The compilation didn't even come out till like the spring or summer of '89. Like it took a while to come out. And, I didn't even get a copy of it. I still never even got an official copy. I mean, I have the vinyl and CD now. Like in the 90s, a European guy bootlegged a numbered CDR of it with like a booklet. And
that's crazy how that happens. Like, something you create when you're like 15 and some dude's like CDRing it in another country.
Yep.
Like, that's fucking wild, And like, and here you are from 15 to like still recording now. Like, it's so much fun to think about the fact that, like music, is so much to me, so much to Parker, so much to you that, we just continue to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I've toured the States. I've toured Europe. I've done a lot. There's still some things I still want to do. Obviously, I'm not stopping anytime soon, but it's definitely been a lot of fun, and it's been like a crazy fucking journey, I mean, but around late '89, I'm going in chronological.
Oh yeah.
Close Call kind of breaks up. We made two demos. We went to Don Fury twice and made two demos. The first one I was 15, and the second one I was 16. We made two demos in 1 year, actually, both in '89. We were a really good band, actually, Close Call. Some of those tracks are on YouTube. A friend of mine is going to try to get everything up on YouTube. We kind of sounded like, we sounded a lot like Token Entry meets Leeway meets Breakdown. I would say those three bands in particular were definitely, our influences. We were influenced by every single band of the day, I think, back then. But those were the bands like we really liked.
Yeah, Leeway must have been big. Definitely. Like,
seeing Leeway between '88 and '91 was ridiculous, man. Talk about a band that was just like ahead of its time and just so popular and so great. And they were just like ridiculous live back then. I mean, it was so special. Like, you thought that they were going to be the biggest band in the world.
Well,
because they were one of the biggest bands in New York City, 100%. And maybe on like the Northeast and the East Coast, they went to California with Bad Brains. There's footage of some great shows from back then. But, shit happened with that band, and they didn't become one of the biggest bands in the world. But in my opinion, I always thought that they could have and should have.
Yeah, because, I mean, like, you listen to the, just the influences that they were pouring out. Like, Eddie he sang like no one else in that area.
Not many
melody
people in the hardcore scene can sing. And he was a singer,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they had that in their pocket. And then they had the musicianship of like Michael Gibbons in their fucking pocket, like one of the ridiculous guitar work. AJ Novello, ridiculous rhythm guitar player. It was just like, wow. And just so catchy and just original,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially for that, like you said, everything was so abrasive, and here they come with those chops. and
Yeah, yeah,
just that mixture of like the best of metal and the best of hardcore.
yeah, and a little bit of and of course the hip hop kind of like
Yeah.
swagger, and it's just wow, man. It was just really cool to see them back then. Like holy shit, the first time I saw them was in October of '88. There was a benefit for Pete from Sick of It All, who had some legal trouble. He got into some fight at a show, and it was like Leeway, Sick of It All, Raw Deal. I think Maximum Penalty played that show too. It was like this like stacked bill, and Straight Ahead even played it. It was a band that was like really big that had broken up a year or so before, and it was just Leeway headline that show, and it was like wow, it was bonkers, you know.
And when did you actually just pick up the mic to start singing?
Well, that's not until after an entire cycle of another band called Confusion.
Oh, okay.
Confusion was around from '90 to '94, and I was the bass player of that band. And what separated us from everybody else was we were mixing death metal and New York City hardcore. I don't know, about 6-7 years before anyone thought to do that, in my opinion. And we were calling it deathcore then. That term deathcore now means really crappy music. Like it doesn't mean, it does not mean the melding of good hardcore and good death metal.
So
it means like people with like floppy hair, and it means really something else now. But back then it meant like you mixed, you know, Outburst and Obituary. You know what I'm saying? Like it meant you had short songs with very brutal riffs and just all breakdowns, and like, but it was made by hardcore kids.
And were you venturing? Because I know that you got into death too, but were you venturing, you know, listening to death metal bands by that time?
Yeah, that's what happened. The thing is this: in 1990, the New York City hardcore scene had literally vanished due to like violence and just bands breaking up left and right, bands changing their sound. Some of the only bands that didn't do that were like Sheer Terror, Thick of It All. You had Leeway, and you had Murphy's Law, and that's really like about it. AF broke up in like '92. All these other bands broke up, like Token Entry broke up, Rest in Pieces broke up, Youth Today broke up. The scene just imploded, barring a small handful of bands, okay? So what happened was in Brooklyn, a bunch of hardcore bands formed, and Confusion was one of them. And that was the year my brother's John's band Lament formed, and you had some other bands like Nobody's Perfect and Patterns, Marauder, Life of Agony, and all these bands from South Brooklyn formed as a pretty much made up of dudes who went to the shows in the city but didn't get the chance to play CBs because everything just, like I said, just kind of stopped at one point in the city. So we kind of made our own way at Lemoore and a place called the Crazy Country Club, and just kind of wherever we could, really, you know, like we put Long Island or Jersey or wherever. And that was an interesting time. Like what would happen to me and some friends around that time is, although we loved hardcore and we were still in the hardcore scene, we discovered death metal, and we loved death metal. And we thought it was, for me, it was just like the next step. You know what I'm saying? It was like the next level of intensity. Whereas I went from thrash metal to hardcore. I went from hardcore to death metal.
What was the first death metal?
You know,
what was the first death metal album that you stumbled upon that you loved?
I bought Cause of Death on cassette at Slip Disc in Long Island. And this is when I was already, you know, a hardcore dude for a few years. And Saab from Marauder was one of my good friends. He told me all about them, and my friend Johnny Zito told me all about them because I was a horror fan, and they're like, you have to hear this band. It's like horror metal. It's like the singer doesn't even have lyrics. It just sounds like he's screaming and dying. You have to hear it. And it's pretty much, that's what the first two Obituary records really kind of sounded like. There are no lyrics in any of those records. So I was floored. I fucking loved it. And then I heard Death, and then I heard, you know, Deicide and Morbid Angel and Entombed. And I was like, this is fucking amazing. Like, I love this. Like I said, I always was enticed by what was next and what was heavier and what was more brutal and what was more exciting. I remember I heard Ministry for the first time around that time, and I heard Godflesh. Like all this new music was happening, and it was new music. You know, it was new genres of music, and I was getting exposed to it, and I didn't abandon anything. I took it all with me. You know, some people would be abandoned and then just, you know, kind of become a new person. I didn't become a new person. I just became like a music addict. That's kind of what was happening to me, you know.
Do you think hardcore can evolve, or is just hardcore hardcore?
Well, no, see, here's the thing, like, that's hard to answer because like right now there's a new hardcore band that sounds like it's 30 years ago because that's the kind of hardcore they like, right?
Yeah.
And then the 3 towns over, there's a new hardcore band that sounds like, I don't know, Snapcase, or that sounds like, say, I don't know, like American Nightmare. Like everyone kind of has their own interpretation, but it's all kind of under that one umbrella, and it's all correct, you know?
Yeah.
I just think that it's just different styles. I mean, to some people, the beatdown stuff is not hardcore in the slightest. But I know people who are diehard hardcore fans that do love that genre of music. And I'm not going to tell them they're not a hardcore person because they like that genre, and they may not like, you know, youth of today. I mean, I just think it's just very sectionalized, and it's so sectionalized that I can't tell anybody that they're wrong, you know, because there's so much history now. Hardcore it'll be 40 years old soon. You know what I'm saying? And to some people, if it's not short songs, fast songs, it's not hardcore. And that's okay. They can believe that. But I don't know. I feel like to a degree it did evolve, you know, and it can be a bit different than that and still be hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with like every music. You know, like you could say the same thing about hip hop. Like for me, like obviously I know you're not as well versed in hip hop, but like just to touch on it briefly, it's like, you know, the newer stuff today, you know, that's popular, people look at it and they're like, I don't even understand anything.
Yeah, I hate new rap. It's funny, I really liked rap from about, I would say, 87 to about 93, 94.
Oh, so
I actually
the golden era.
Yeah. Rap, when I was in high school, between 87 and 91, was really good. And then in college, it was really good, okay? The only other record that I actually feel like I enjoyed in the 2000s is a 15-year-old record. It's the outkast Speaker Box Love Below record. And I like that record because in a way it just reminds me of like almost like a 2000s answer to like Paul's Boutique. It's very all over the place, you know?
Oh yeah, very much so.
And you can kind of listen to it and find something different about it. Like, I mean, it's almost like 2 solo records in one.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is actually.
There's so much going on those records, and I think at that time in my life, I don't know how that record found me somehow, because there was a lot of hits, I guess, from it. And then I just kind of hunkered down, I remember, and I would listen to that record a lot back then. And it has been that long since I've enjoyed a record like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
like, I'm a big Jay-Z guy, I'm not a big Nas guy, and this, I'm going to lose fans for this. Wu-Tang is just highly annoying to me, honestly. I never even got them. Like, you know, I love NWA and I love the Ghetto Boys
yeah.
the most, honestly, because I was coming from a place of like crazy, hardcore fights, horror movies, and nuttiness. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I love those 2 bands.
Yeah, and those two groups definitely came from that chaos,
Right.
and it was still new. Like in the early '80s, like late '80s, like, you know, like you were just like, holy shit! Like the stuff that they were talking about really was kind of like a report or like a view, just like the hardcore scene.
The Ghetto Boys, to me, I almost feel like they heard Compton and were like, oh man, we can wipe the floor with this one. We can up the ante by 10 on this one. And they probably were horror fans too, and there are those weird horror references in there, and there's crazy rape shit on that self-titled record, and there's there's stuff on that record now that if a bunch of early 20s dudes formed a rap group and decided to jump in that pool, they would get thrown physically out of the record company office.
Yeah, and don't forget the album cover where Bushwick Bill is, laying on a gurney after being shot in the eye.
No, like, I mean, honestly, but like, I fucking love those records. Like, there was just something about those records. I don't know. Like, maybe it's just
they're great. That's
it wasn't just about the insane lyrics and violence and shit. They had great beats, and it was like catchy. I don't know. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And then like
the black metal that came after it for me were just, I guess, like an extension of that. Like, and finding black metal around 93, 94 came out of death metal, and literally 25 years ago now, my brother Kevin, who has the wrestling podcast and stuff, he used to buy Kerrang! Magazine every week at the record store Zigzag, right? And I remember, I would read it, and I'd read through it, and there was this thing about black metal on the cover. And it's a dude with the face paint and a knife. I'm like, what the fuck is black metal? Like, I know what death metal is. I know what thrash metal is. What is black metal? And that was my exposure to black metal. And then sure enough, a few weeks later, there was a thing about the Murders, Mayhem, and Burzum, and they featured all those bands, and that was it. It was like, holy shit, this is it.
Are you waiting for that movie?
You know what? I think the movie might be terrible, but I'm going to see it anyway because, well, why not, right?
Yeah, I'm with you. I saw Meg today,
Why not? I mean, of course it's going to be a clusterfuck, but who knows? I mean, I don't know, man. I just feel like everything and anything is up for grabs. Nothing is really sacred. But the very cool thing about that movie is that not one fucking band signed off on a soundtrack, and not one band gave their okay for their music to be like prominently featured. Not one of those dudes is in the movie, so the integrity of those guys to me is intact. If somebody wanted to make a life story about you, Sam, they could. You know what I'm saying? They won't need your permission per se.
Yeah.
Or someone wanted to write a book about you. Like, they attempted to get in touch with all those guys and all those bands. Almost every single one of them said "fuck you" and no.
I mean, isn't that their shtick? I don't want to say shtick, but isn't that like kind of like? I'd be more surprised if any one of them did sign on.
Yeah.
No, because the thing is, I just feel like so few things have integrity today. But I feel like a lot of those dudes do have some integrity, even though some people think they don't. Another story. I think they do. And it's about the deaths of their friends, and it's real. It's real to those people. You know what I'm saying?
Very real, yeah.
It really happened, So those things really went on. And I'm glad to see that there's, they were like, fuck off, Because I feel like some people in different genres of music might have not have said that. You know what I'm saying?
I think at the end of the day, sometimes, it's unfortunate, but like money talks sometimes. And if you have enough bills, and you're just like, fuck it. So,
yeah.
And I get that.
The Confusion Band had a really good run, actually. And we were playing with a lot of good death metal bands and good hardcore bands. Played the Wetlands a lot, played L'Amour a lot, played with Deicide like twice. Played with Cannibal Corpse in like 92. It was great. But our singer, Mike, went away to college in 94, thus ending the band. Around that time, I had the name INHUMAN in my pocket, for a new band that I was going to sing for. I knew I wanted to sing throughout 94, actually.
Did you try it? Or were you singing backups on any of these?
I actually bought a microphone, and I would sing at home along to
Elvis,
Leveling Creation, and Exhorder.
Oh,
those three bands, by the way.
Let me just say real quick.
Initially, INHUMAN was not going to be a hardcore band, by the way.
Okay, because to me, I just actually stumbled across Exhorder, and they're fucking great.
It's crazy shit, that band, yeah.
Those two albums, like I don't know how they missed me because I'm a big thrash metal guy, and somebody mentioned them. Might have been Rich Jacko, and I don't remember who, but like I listened. It might have been actually Derek from Neglect.
You know why you mentioned them? There's two reasons. Number one, they came out in 90 and 92.
Yep,
Two things were popular in those times:
you're right. Yep,
death metal and grunge.
you're right.
That's why you missed those records.
You're right, because I was probably listening to Nevermind at 13.
Along with everybody else.
Exactly. they missed. They got in the 90. Arguably, is the last year of thrash metal. 1990. Okay.
Yeah,
They
Seasons.
got their first record in. They got their first record in time. But guess what came out that year as well? Cowboys from Hell.
Oh yeah.
They sound very much alike. Not a lot alike. Vocally, they sound alike. Phil was a fan of the band, was friends with the band, and there's tales and stories of just how much of an influence he may or may not have, taken from them and this and that. People have argued that for the last 25, 30 years. In 92, when their second record drops, the death metal's in full swing in the underground. Thrash is dead. Nobody gives a rat's ass about thrash unless you're Slayer or Metallica or Megadeth, honestly.
But even then, they weren't on their way out.
Like they went on this tour with like Entombed, and they imploded. They broke up on tour, and they never even got to play New York. They were supposed to play Lemoore actually, and they didn't play. And when they played Vitus earlier this year, the singer went, "This is our first ever show in New York City." And I was like, I knew it. I knew this was their first ever show in New York City.
Oh, that's right. You went. I remember. You posted because that's, yeah. Hey, yo, how do you? I mean. You're not a straight edge guy, but I mean, I'm just thinking.
I was actually. I was straight edge twice actually.
Because you remember everything, like and
I was straight edge when I first got into hardcore, because when you first get into something, you're like gung ho about it. So I was straight edge in '88, and then I broke my edge in like '89, and then I became straight edge again from '96 to '98. Two of the most active years of my touring, actually.
Why? Why did you do that then?
I wanted to be. I was very kind of like sucked in by a combination of the past and the present, let's just say. You know?
Yep.
Of my older, like, teenage straight edge days. And then I think one night I'd smoked some pot. I wasn't a big pot guy at all. And it was like early '96, and I'd smoked pot at a party, and I had this horrendous reaction to it, right? And I came home, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. I was like, I don't ever want to feel like that ever again. Even though, I wasn't a pothead. Maybe it was like laced with something. Who the fuck knows what it was? But
somebody was trying to bang you.
Angry at myself, right? Maybe angry at myself. And I was straight edge for over 2 years. I stopped being straight edge around, I believe it was October of '98. Yes, so been a long time.
Wow, and when did you start to save all these flyers and all these like memorabilia type things? Because I mean,
throughout the whole time, yeah.
Throughout the whole time, right? Because I mean, I guess like for me, like I started saving ticket stubs. I
have a lot of ticket stubs. I have a lot of flyers, and then I have like a lot of like pictures from magazines. Back in the day, the metal magazines, sometimes they would have some hardcore pictures. They always had Cro-Mags pictures because Cro-Mags looked the coolest, and Harley and John had tons of tattoos. There's all these great color pin-up pullouts of the Cro-Mags in metal magazines from back in the day. I have a lot of those, actually. And then Leeway started creeping into some of them, too. I have some of them. And then every once in a while, you'd see Murphy's Law. Like, you'd see, like, the bigger hardcore bands. Then Sick of It All. It was a magazine initially. It was called Thrash Metal Magazine, and it became Metal Maniacs. And Metal Maniacs had a great run. It was around for like a really long time, but it always kind of dipped its toes into some hardcore stuff with most of like the death metal, and the black metal, and doom metal and shit. That was a great magazine.
Going back to like the start of Inhuman, then like you said that you weren't like it wasn't going to be a hardcore band.
No, it was actually going to be an extension of Confusion. It was going to be this crazy, brutal band, right? Like death grind, like heavy band. And then what happened was SHUTDOWN had formed, my younger brother's band, and I was going to all of their shows. And I was, I just had kind of been like my love of like traditional hardcore was kind of rekindled by SHUTDOWN. And then hearing a band called Ignite, who put out their first album around that time too, called Calling My Brothers. And hearing that and seeing SHUTDOWN and listening to them and seeing them reminded me of like Bold and Youth of Today from like 7-8 years prior. You know what I mean? And I love that kind of stuff. And that stuff just wasn't happening anymore, And I don't know. I just was like, you know what? Like, maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't want to do something that's just like Confusion. I did Confusion thing for 4 years. Maybe I want to do like a straight hardcore band again. And it was like a conscious decision that stylistically, no, that's not what it's going to be. It's going to be a hardcore band. And this was around the spring of '95. I started writing the riffs and have lyrics. I had a ton of lyrics. I had a bunch of riffs. And some of the riffs even go back to '94. Like I was the primary INHUMAN songwriter of music and lyrics for a while, actually. Later, it just became lyrics. But initially, I wrote almost all the music for the band, too.
Wow.
So.
And for someone like Mark, like your younger brother, I mean, did you, I guess you had a lot of influence on him?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I took John to his first hardcore show just months after I went to mine, right? And then Mark started coming to my shows in '93 when he was 13 or 14. Yeah, 14. So it was like history repeating itself, really, with Mark and me. Mark loved going to Confusion. Mark loved hanging out with all the fucking Brooklyn maniacs and, you know what I'm saying, and jumping off stage and getting treated like he was the fucking golden child because he was me and John's brother.
Yeah, of course.
It was great. It was a great time, Mark would go to shows at Lemoore when he was like 14 and 15. He was at like Bond Street at 14. Like he was going everything because he was with his two older brothers, But I think his sophomore year at 15, him and Justin from Indecision formed SHUTDOWN, actually. Justin was one of the first guys in the band. But he kind of just helped Mark get the band off the ground. I don't know if he ever actually even played a single show with SHUTDOWN, Justin, because he was doing Indecision. Indecision was already out. They came out in like 93. So Indecision is like 93, SHUTDOWN is 94, and INHUMAN's 95.
Wow.
We all kind of were playing together a lot.
So the Brooklyn scene was basically on fire then, right?
Yes, absolutely. But your Biohazard and Life of Agony were gone. You know what I'm saying? You had SHUTDOWN, Indecision, INHUMAN, and Marauder. Life of Agony was a fucking rock band, dude. I mean, they by that point they were not.
Yeah, like
playing, they weren't playing with any of us anymore. Really.
Urban Discipline and River Runs Red took off together. It seemed.
Biohazard was doing like the Modeleo, and like it was. They were not the band that they were just a few years prior by the later '90s. You know what I'm saying? And there was so much going on in the scene with newer New York City bands and like Sycamore was on fire. Everybody was doing great, and it was like Biohazard was doing this weird metal rap thing, and that you didn't think of like Brooklyn. Like when you thought of Brooklyn, you thought of our band. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Back then. Biohazard was the early '90s. This is the late '90s, so things were different. You also had Candiria. Brooklyn had some other cooler, like newer bands going on.
So you guys would all play together,
Yeah.
like you, your brother's band, and what was John doing at this time?
Let's see. Lament had broken up. John, I'm trying to think. So Dag 16, I think, formed in like 98 or 99, but before that, there was a band that led up to that in 97 called Tony Stark. He had this short-lived post-hardcore band called Tony Stark.
He told me to listen to that.
Same label that put out It's called Tony Stark High Tech Low Life. It's an EP. It's really good. It's similar to Synthetic 16, not as good though, in my opinion. Synthetic is better. But some people really liked Tony Stark. They were like, post-hardcore.
Yeah, wow, man. So like it's so different then, because I mean, I guess John was doing his thing, and then you and Mark were waving that hardcore flag.
I mean, me and Mark were still at home in Sheepshead Bay. John was the first brother to move out. John moved 800 times. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was always in different places and doing different things. And, he was devoted to his job back then. And, but he would still go to the shows from time to time and hang out, But, yeah, the Inhuman thing, like, it was weird. I was very inspired by the rebirth of hardcore in '95, to be honest. And still listening to death metal, black metal, still listening to everything. You know what I'm saying?
But it wasn't that big in '90. Like you figure, arguably in '95, like hardcore was bigger. Like metal, aside from like maybe the At the Gates record and Pantera, like.
Yeah, no, metal was in a weird place. Unless you were like Typo, Pantera.
Yep.
Or you're in the underground. It was dead. Yes, 100%. There was a lot of shitty new metal coming down the pike a little later on. What's funny is though, some people even forget about the death metal and black metal stuff where they say metal was gone back then. It's like, no, you idiot. It wasn't gone. It was actually, there was some great stuff happening. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that always would kind of irk me, as like a big metal fan. Or when they say that grunge killed metal, and it's like, no.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I was listening to quite a bit of metal in the grunge era, actually. That's probably not true. Because that's when death metal, like if you were an underground kid, it was a great time, But I was weird. I was listening to that, and I was listening to Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, and I was listening to Godflesh Ministry and the Sisters of Mercy, and like I don't know. I just kind of was like a sponge, really,
Do you feel like, I mean, like when you write songs, like when you're in a band, like obviously like I'm in a band, you're in a band, I think it's like good to be a sponge, like it helps you come from different angles when you write.
I agree. I mean, lately I try to not be as influenced by the exact same stuff that's going on like in the hardcore scene. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm a little harder to impress with hardcore because I play hardcore.
Okay.
I'll say that. Especially as I get older. I feel like I listen to a lot more newer death metal and black metal, honestly.
You do. You do, because I remember we were making lists last year, and I posted my list, and you just wrote, well, at least we agree on movies.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Because I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus, man, what are you listening to? But the thing is this, that's where, if I had the time, and who knows that time may happen, I probably would have like a proper metal band as well, honestly, like a singing metal, or just like more of like a death or black? Like I don't know, maybe like I love the first 4 Danzig records very much.
We talk about it. Me too.
And I mean, I feel like so many people love that stuff, and they talk about how much they love that stuff. Yet I've never really heard a band even attempt anything remotely like that stuff.
Well, I mean,
I guess for fear of being compared to it, but
are they metal though?
There's ways to be influenced by something and not completely rip it off, And I feel like that would be something I would love to do. You know what I'm saying? But also aside from that, a part of me also wants to do like something in the wheelhouse of the Confusion stuff, the really fucking heavy death metal meets like street kind of hardcore music, like, you know what I'm saying, like just different from The Last Stand and different from Inhuman. Inhuman is a very strange animal. I think we are a hardcore band, and we've always been a hardcore band, but we've never really sounded quite like what was popular at any time we've put out any of our albums, in a way.
Is that by design?
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, we always did whatever we wanted. Like if you listen to like the new Nightmare record, which is our third record, and some people say it's our best record. I kind of think it's a toss-up between that one and the one after it, Last Rites. I just feel like there's this great flow of that record where, like, I just feel like there's no filler. Like, you know what I mean? But the last record I really like because it just captures, like, the darkness of the band. You know, what we would call, like, dark, like, hardcore punk metal. Like, we've been called that a bunch, you know? But, like, honestly, for me, it's just, I don't know, we're all so much kind of on the same page sometimes that whatever Joe, my guitar player, would come up with musically, almost 8 times out of 10, we'd be like, we like that. Let's go with that. You know what I'm saying? Or I'd come in with something like an entire, like the lyrics of a whole song. We have a song called Grindhouse on our last record. I wrote the lyrics in 2005. That movie came out in 2007.
Yeah.
The lyrics are about a book about the Grindhouse cinema of New York City. And I was inspired by that book and just being obsessed with that whole culture of like Times Square and the late 60s through about the early mid 80s.
We love old New York stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I was a Tarantino fan. I was just like, holy shit, he's got a movie coming out called Grindhouse. And we had like a laugh about it because our album was coming out. But the song was written 2 years prior to that, you know? So it's kind of funny
and
how that happened.
We love old New York
By
stuff.
the way, it's called Sleazoid Express. The book is amazing. It's a must-read book. The guy who wrote it actually he's dead. He had a fanzine called Sleazoid Express back in the day, and it's really good. It's called Sleazoid Express. Sorry for repeating myself. By Bill Landis and Michelle Clifford. I urge you guys to check it out.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, anything New York sleaze era, I love.
Yeah. You probably devour the book. It's really good.
I'm old enough to remember all that shit too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we're probably also one of the only New York hardcore bands to write a song about being a vampire, too. And it's a song on the third record called Eternal. And the song musically, it's like a straight kind of hardcore punk song, but the lyrics it's a vampire just kind of talking about himself and about his life. This is kind of weird.
So for anyone listening right now, like that's the record you would tell them to start with if they want to dip into.
Yeah. A lot of people love the first record, Evolver. Evolver is 2 demos put together. Evolver is 2 like EPs with 2 different lineups put together as our first record. But it did really good. Came out on Eyeball Records in '97, and sold a lot of those on CD.
Nice.
The second record is on Exit Wreckage. It's called Rebellion. And it falls a little bit to that second record curse, where you have your whole life to write your first record.
Yeah, man.
But X amount of time to write your second record, which is kind of exactly what happened. We did a lot of touring in '97 and '98, right? And we signed to that label in like late '98, and we had to get the record out by it was the late summer, early fall of '99. We had to record it and lost the drummer. We got a new drummer in, and it was a little rushed. What's funny is it did really good in Europe. It got a European re-release 2 years later, actually.
Do you get to go to Europe because of that?
We got to go to Europe after that record, actually. We got to go in between that one. And after that, we did this EP called Black Rain in late 2002 on this European label called Release Power Productions. So in between that and New Nightmare, we went to Europe in March, April of 2003, which was a lot of fun. It was really cool.
What do you like attribute to the fact that the band's like 23 years old and you guys still basically do it like.
Here's the thing: we've never broken up, right?
Yeah.
But there have been periods of inactivity, or 1 or 2 shows a year. I got honestly, but the last 2 years or so, there's been a renewed interest and a renewed, I don't know. I mean, we've always been respected. It's funny, bands people in bands and in bigger bands have always told us how much they liked us, which was always made me feel good, you know? I'll never forget one time we played with Underdog in the city, and Richie Birkenhead, who was literally, I mean, I thank him on the second INHUMAN record. I don't even know the guy. I just was so inspired by him and like Into Another and Underdog, you know? He was like, man, that was like one of the best hardcore sets I've seen in years. And I never forgot that, you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't have to say that to me, you know? And like, we always got respect from certain bands that we fucking love whenever we would open up for them when we would meet bigger bands, you know? And that would always mean a lot to me.
It feels good, man. It feels good. Like, same thing for me. Like, whenever, you know, like, we're not a popular band, we're not, you know, whatever, but like when we play and certain people that we play with, or like anyone in the audience is like, man, that was just fucking really good. Like, it just, you feel like all this work. I mean, I would do it anyway because it's just passion and I fucking love writing songs. Right. But it's nice to get like that acknowledgement or that heads up by, you know, somebody's like, that was pretty fucking good, because you don't have to say shit.
Like, around the time of our 20th anniversary, Paul Barrett from SHUTDOWN asked us to play with them at his annual Christmas show. We were like, oh shit, man, that's fucking awesome. Thank you, man. Like, that was great, you know? And then, was it like October of 2016, Sick of It All asked us to play one of their 30th anniversary shows for the Tri-Borough tour they did. They did Queens, Manhattan, and Brooklyn, and they asked us to play the Brooklyn show. I mean, that's fucking, I mean, we don't, you know, you can't fucking turn that down, number one. And number two, it's like, to me, it just shows that, like, you do have fucking respect and people do like you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But honestly, like you said, had these opportunities not come along in the recent years, we'd probably still be doing it at our own fucking level, like the only way we want to do it, you know? Like, it's been the same four guys for a very long time. I'm the only guy that's been in the band 23 years, obviously, but Joe has been with me for 20 years, Hank for like 18 years, and Steve for over 15 years. So that's INHUMAN. You know what I'm saying? The other ex-members, it's funny, that's all kind of a part of this extended kind of family. You know, Walter, who did a lot of the touring with us and is on 2 of our records, and Jay, my first bass player, and Larry, first guitar player. They made the demo and half the first album. Everybody's, you know, I still talk to these people and still see these people, and it's like, you know, these are good friends of mine. Nick, who's on the first 2 records on drums, you feel like my family too, you know. 23 years is a long time, and we do it because we love it. We do it at our own fucking pace, you know. There's no pressure. We have a lot of fun. I mean, they're like 3 of my brothers. They are my brothers, you know. We have a lot of fun together, actually. Probably too much fun, as you might see on our Instagram.
I do. You know, you definitely, you know, what I like about you is you document everything that you do, because but you know what it is? People use social media for like the shittiest reasons. You use it for the best reasons, like the reasons that I love.
You'll never see me ruin people's days on social media. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, you'll never see me like talk about how horrible my life is, number one, even if it is going horrible.
Me too.
You probably never would know it.
Me too.
Number two, you never, like, I want people to see better kind of things, you know, like, and especially if it comes to like my music, like, I want people to like want to go and check out the page, not run from the page. Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be like social media repellent, which is quite a few people are. You know what I'm saying?
I agree, man.
It's just there's no need for it. There's so much of that in real life, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like to think some people's pages will put a smile on your face or make you think about something cool, or, you know what I'm saying? Well, something you either look forward to or something that you remember, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? One or the other.
You're good at that because, like, you do what I do. It's very similar, which is why I respect it. And like I said, you're someone that I admire from afar, because I'm like, man, this dude, you know, we're we always give people like two options because it's just a conversation starter. You know, you're like Danzig 1 or Danzig 2, you know, and then from there there's like 200 comments and everyone's like, you know, enjoying the day.
I try not to fight anybody. Like sometimes, like a few people who will remain nameless insist on just bringing negativity and like saying dumb shit, and it's just like sometimes I'll just be like, why are you here? That'll be my one engagement. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, you know, generally I try to just stay away from that. But you know, Inhuman is blessed. I'm blessed to be with the musicians that I play with, number one, and the friendships that I have, number two. And I threaten new music a lot with Inhuman. I actually have songs, Inhuman songs, lyrically, 3 of them. So, you know, it's just weird getting everybody on the same kind of page with what we want to do with the future. Everyone loves, and the band is okay with playing the songs we have. We have a lot of songs, you know, and it's stylistically, we could almost play with almost any band imaginable in a way, right? Any type of hardcore punk band imaginable, I think Inhuman could play with. But I'm not really finished with what I want to say with the band, you know? So we shall see about new material.
Yeah, it keeps you going, and it's funny because sometimes I see your brother John kind of like pining away because I feel like he misses it, right?
Look, I think he does 100%. I can't speak for him.
Yeah.
As an outsider, I will say he seems like someone who wants to be playing music again, and I hope he does play music again because I think he should be playing music again.
Yeah.
So that's all I got to say about that. But with The Last Stand, it's funny. In 2010,
Yeah, this is your other band because you're currently in 2 bands.
yeah, I'm in 2 bands. The Last Stand is the other hardcore band I'm in, made up of the 3 musicians of my brother Mark's band, SHUTDOWN. SHUTDOWN kind of broke up, but not officially, in 2001 when my brother Mark moved to Florida. The other guys, you know, stayed in New York. Steve, at one point, was my guitarist, was in Pantera 16. Steven Della Croce is the only person who had been in a band with 3 Scondotto brothers. He's in Pantera 16 and The Last Stand.
Oh, nice.
Yes. But I'm his favorite. Anyway, now, 2010, Dion had been coming to, you know, he would go to Inhuman shows a lot, hang out with us a lot, whatnot, you know. Always was very tighter, probably with him more than Steve and Jimmy, even though there was a time when Jimmy shut down, was in Inhuman for like a year. From like 2003 to 2004, he was like our drummer. We did this mini tour with Sick of It All. He did that tour with us, actually, Jimmy. They're all like, you know, like other younger brothers to me. You know what I'm saying? Because they're all younger than me. Now, Dion was like, listen, I have a whole bunch of music, you know, new hardcore music. I said, okay. The songs are done. The lyrics are done. Some of these songs, honestly, were intended to be new SHUTDOWN material. He goes, but honestly, I don't, Mark isn't moving back. I mean, Mark's, kids had been born at this point, or one of them was actually. One of my nephews was already born. And, you know, Mark had his life pretty much secure down in Florida. And he goes, we want to do this band, me, Steve, and Jimmy. We want you to be the singer of a new band. I was like, really? I was like, okay. You know, let me hear the music. And they sent me the music, and a lot of it was what was made up of the first demo of The Last Stand, which came out later that year. And some of those songs ended up on the album, which came out, 2-3 years later. And I liked it. It was more kind of like, I don't know, to a degree old school hardcore, but also very groove oriented, very like repetitive riff wise, and very heavy on the choruses and a lot of groove. I think that's what really separates The Last Stand from SHUTDOWN. And Inhuman, actually, is this kind of groove aspect, which I like, you know. Now, I actually said, yes, but let me talk to Mark first? I said, only because you guys were his band, and I just want to, not that I'm looking for permission. I wasn't looking for permission. I just wanted to get almost like a blessing. In a way.
I think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. And I did do that. And I got the blessing, so to speak, you know? And we were up and running pretty fucking fast. Because 2010, I think INHUMAN did a few shows, but not many, you know? And my other guys in INHUMAN are also in other bands. Joe and Hank are actually in a new band called Silver Tomb with Kenny Hickey and Johnny Kelly from Typo Negative.
Nice.
They're actually recording the record this year. They're going out on tour with Life of Agony for a couple of weeks soon. But Henry had been jamming with Kenny forever. Henry was in a band with him called Seventh Void that put a record out when Pete Steele was alive, actually. I don't know if you remember that. It was like 08, 09 it came out. But Last Stand was up and running really fast. We went in, I did the demo, I did the vocals. We put out I think it was like 400 CD, like a pro CD of the demo, you know what I'm saying? Specifically for like a demo to sell at shows and shit. And it got a good response, you know? The first shows we did were with SHUTDOWN because Mark came in for a weekend around October of 2010, and we opened the shows basically. Like Steve, Jimmy, and Dion would kind of play first, and then SHUTDOWN would play later. Like our first show was at Bowery Electric, The Last Stand. We opened it up. It was like SHUTDOWN, Maximum Penalty. It was like a really cool show. But we also did the Tsunami Fest that year. Like Shelter played. I mean, we were pretty green, you know, and but we were getting a lot of good show offers because it was, the guys from INHUMAN and The Last Stand together. Why the fuck not, you know? But we've worked hard, man. It's 8 years later. Like we've put out an album and now 2 EPs. The last EP came out last summer, and it's done really good. I'm very happy with the way things are going in The Last Stand, and I feel like we've really kind of found our sound. Really a different animal from INHUMAN, very different. I mean, the songs are structured way different. There's almost no metal at all, where INHUMAN has metal. You know what I'm saying?
How does the songwriting work? Do they send you the songs or?
Yeah, well, Dion's a very good songwriter. He writes almost about 100% of the music, and a very good chunk of the lyrics. Actually, Dion writes.
Nice.
Then I kind of retool a lot of them. But yeah, he's good at writing, like, to me, like hits. He's good at writing like hardcore hits, like memorable hardcore songs. You know what I'm saying? There is such a thing. People can pretend all they want that there isn't such a thing, but there is such a thing.
Sick of it all, does it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Agnostic Front does it. You know what I'm saying? A lot of bands do it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with remembering what you just fucking heard. You know what I'm saying? Like, and wanting to hear it again, right? That's not a bad thing in music, right?
No.
But when I say hits, I don't mean monetary hits. I mean hits for the crowd. Like, I mean hits for like that you want to hear it again. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like memorable stuff. Like if you hear something like Step Down. Step Down could never be
Scratch the Surface is another one.
Scratch the Surface is my favorite Sick of It All album.
Take the Night Off. Even some of the newer stuff, like really fucking good songs. You know what I'm saying? Those guys can write fucking good songs, and they're the leaders of this genre, in my opinion.
I think they are too, because even me, who's not really that well versed in hardcore, Sick of It All was always one of those bands that I just loved because it was just I don't know, I got it. Like I could listen to it and I fucking got it.
They're probably still my favorite live band ever to watch.
Yeah, I just saw them the other night with Pennywise, and I mean Pennywise was good, but Sick of It All was way better. And they had the crowd, and it was great,
It's like they have the energy of like 20-year-olds. I don't get it. It's great.
They really do. And it's just one of a kind, man. Really one of a kind. I mean, honestly, for New York, it's them, AF, Madball, Murphy's Law, Chromax. That's the pinnacle. Like especially the live setting, those bands. It's like there's nothing quite like those bands, you know. And then I would say newer, even though they're not that newer, Terror is one of the greatest of the last 15 or so years, I think. Terror.
I think Parker's going to say Buried Alive. Is that the other one you like?
I did love Buried Alive, but Terror. The first time I saw Terror, it blew my mind. First time I saw them.
We actually played with Buried Alive some festival in Kentucky.
It's awesome.
I like Terror more than Buried Alive, actually.
You know, so going to like new music, like you know, I ask you because you're in the mix, man. What are some like newer bands that you like?
It's funny, a bunch of like bands from Boston, like I started to like newer hardcore bands. Well, they broke up about a year or so ago, but this band, the Rival Mob from Boston, probably one of my favorite bands of the last 7 or 8 years in hardcore. And then another Boston band, again the same time frame, but they are, I believe, still together, called Boston Strangler. Just fucking sick, old school, you know, like the 90s never happened hardcore. Like, you know what I'm saying? Vicious, like old school Boston SDDYS kind of hardcore. But Rival Mob, like a really good modern hardcore band. Really good.
That is funny. Like, we briefly touched upon, like, you know, the 80s New York hardcore versus the 90s New York hardcore. And I guess you saw that, right?
Oh, I totally did. Even though I only caught the last 2-3 years of the 80s New York hardcore scene, there's definitely a difference. But what was cool, though, what the similarity was that the diversity in sound was like Supertouch didn't sound like Gorilla Biscuits. Murphy's Law didn't sound like, you know, Youth of Today. You know what I'm saying? Bold didn't sound like Sick of It All, right? And in the 90s, Indecision didn't sound like, say, No Redeeming Social Value. And Inhuman didn't sound like Fahrenheit 451. And, you know what I'm saying? Millhouse didn't sound like Shutdown. You know what I'm saying? Like, the diversity was there, you know? The different sounds in the same scene were there, you know?
So it's interesting because then it's like regional, you know, because you mentioned grunge for a minute, and it's the same thing. It's like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, Pearl Jam sound nothing like each other.
Yeah.
No, they really didn't. I mean, it's just geographics. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we had similar influences. We all had the same influences, you know what I'm saying? But just musically, it just went in different places, you know? I don't think Inhuman, Indecision, Shutdown, to just take those three, like, are the same exact styles of hardcore, really, you know? They're all hardcore bands, you know? And then I always loved two Jersey bands in particular in the 90s. I loved Ensign and Floor Punch, right? They were similar, but they're quite different from each other, too, you know? They were both kind of straight edge and positive, but Floor Punch was kind of like meaner, you know? They were like more New York City rooted, but they were a bunch of Jersey guys, you know what I'm saying? Where I think Ensign was more Jersey rooted, probably more rooted by a band like Vision, you know, who was like, to me, one of the greatest Jersey hardcore bands ever, Vision. I don't know if you guys ever checked them out. They were great. On the melodic side, they're a great band.
Yeah, that's my world, melodic.
Yeah. You might like it. Singer Dave was a friend of ours. He passed away last year. But they were great, man. They have a bunch of records out there. You should check them out.
Okay, so like before we wrap up, like you know, obviously we talked about the music. You also do a podcast, Necromaniacs, right?
Necromaniacs podcast. It's me and Mike Hill from the band Tomb. Really great, awesome metal band. We started it 4 years ago, and honestly, the 4 year ago podcast landscape to now, I think there's a tremendous difference. I think
ridiculous.
4 years ago,
it's like a band now.
It's like an alien horror podcast.
Yeah,
I don't know how many there were in 2014, but there was nowhere near the amount that there is now. Nowhere near, I think.
What inspired you to start that one, though? Because, I mean, like 4 years ago, like you must have heard something that you're like, oh, fuck it, we could do this.
Okay, Mike has his own podcast, right? Everything Went Black. He did that. Know what the first episode of that was about?
No.
It was about me and Mike and I's experience going to see a Serbian film at a little movie theater in Bay Ridge. No business showing a Serbian film.
Holy shit! You saw it in
Alpine in Bay Ridge. The Alpine in Bay Ridge is in the middle of like, you know, it's like a Muslim area of Bay Ridge, but it's a very like normal kind of like nothing really seedy about it. Like it's a theater that shows all mainstream movies. Is what I'm trying to say.
Unbelievable.
Of
all movies.
Out, and you know we're up on a horror, and we're like, it's playing at that fucking Alpine? What? Why? We were like, and that was in like I think that was let's see. That was before 4 years ago. That was like 6 years ago, I think. That was the catalyst in a way, right? Because he was doing his own podcast. And he just didn't want it to be all about movies, I think. Everything Went Black. It's actually a lot of his podcast is about MMA stuff. I mean, it's kind of about whatever he wants it to be. But he made a decision to go like, you know what, man? You and I, we talk about movies all the fucking time. We go to horror movies together all the time. Let's do a separate podcast for the movies. And that was the birth of Necromaniacs.
Yeah, which is kind of like I do 2 shows, and If I Rule the World is very guest-centric. You know, I can't really go off the rails too much because it's not really about me. But Red River, you know, we get to talk our shit on this, so it's
Right.
a lot of fun because, you know, we could ask, you know, just like questions about a Serbian film.
It's different. Exactly. Now, if and when I ever get my own podcast going, it probably won't be all about horror movies. Obviously, it'll be different. It might be even more musically driven because everybody asks me about that all the fucking time.
Well, I think you would be great because you have so many like informed opinions. Even if I don't agree with every single one, you know, maybe I like a different record. You know what I'm saying? But you just have like when I know someone argues for an album and you know that they love that album for real, I'm just like, oh fuck it, you know, like because to me I go Lucifuge over Danzig 1.
Danzig 1 is just a time and place, man. Like I think I was like 15, 16. I was a Misfits freak. I didn't hear Samhain yet. I went Misfits Danzig 1. Samhain was the elusive animal that came after Danzig.
Me too. Me too.
For a lot of people, actually, I've learned over the years that a lot of the Samhain early on pre-Danzig people are older than me, and they were just around back then, and that's why they fucking know who Samhain is. It's so weird because when Danzig was in full swing, Danzig 1 and 2, that dude refused to talk about the Misfits and Samhain.
Yeah.
That didn't help Samhain, by the way. He could have been talking about Samhain at least. He refused to talk about Samhain. So
Ricky Rackman found out the wrong way.
And by 95, I believe, all production of the record ceased. So everything that was out there. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think 94 and 95, there were no more records being made. The CDs might even be like before that. But like, I think the last vinyl pressings of Samhain records, I believe, was in 95.
I had to wait for the box set.
Like he always talks about how, you know, something about how he's going to reissue some stuff. He hasn't reissued anything. The last thing he did was almost 20 years ago was that Samhain box set, and that's worth $200 open. You know what I'm saying? Do
you think it's just like one of those bittersweet type things? Because like you're a musician, I'm a musician, Parker's a musician, where, you know, same thing with Billy Corgan, Smashing Pumpkins. Like certain people, their older catalog is just so fucking like looked
they
on.
They don't care. It's like I don't care about my own catalog. But
yeah.
I think with him, there is an unknown to fans issue about the Samhain stuff. Whereas a lot of the fans are the version, oh, he owns all the rights to that. He owns all the rights to that. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't own all the rights to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Who knows, man? In this age of vinyl mania, official versions of November Coming Fire and INHUMAN and Holy Passion, you don't think he would bang out at least 10,000 a piece of those?
Oh, easily.
You know what I'm saying? And to kill all the bootlegs, there's way too many bootlegs of Samhain. Way too many.
You know,
And,
I don't enjoy it as much as Misfits or Danzig. It's my least favorite of the three.
mm-hmm. It's not that it's my least favorite. I love it, but it's the third that I like. It's my third.
Okay.
You know, it's my third. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't like to say it's my least favorite. It's almost like I really love it though. You know.
What about Danzig 3 or Danzig 4? I'm gonna go with
I
4.
love Danzig 4 a lot, and it's funny though. I used to almost go 1, 2, 4, 3.
Me too.
But now I almost feel like 3, song for song, might be better, but not by much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're close. They're very close.
I gotta go 4.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I almost think that there's like 1 or 2 throwaway songs on both of them, which almost makes them even records. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think
the whole album to have just 2 songs you could skip is amazing. You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like there's definitely 2 on 4 that I don't care about at all. And there's probably definitely 2 on 3 that I don't care about at all. I'd have to think about it, though.
Now, let me ask you this real quick. The Prowler or My Bloody Valentine?
Well, they're very similar movies.
I know.
Man.
That's why I asked.
They're really similar movies.
Both 81, right?
Yeah, and the you know, the killer looks kind of similar.
Exactly. That's why I asked.
Similar vibe. What's a better movie though? What's a better movie? In a way, maybe the Prowler. Maybe the Prowler. Maybe. I don't know.
I go Prowler.
Yeah, because the Prowler is not based around a fucking holiday. I almost feel like I can only watch My Bloody Valentine in February. Don't ask me why. I mean, you know, I don't watch Halloween in July. You know what I'm saying? I watch it in October, November, you know? But Halloween is one of my favorite all-time movies. But for the lesser horror films, you know, if they're based around certain times of year, I will watch them around a certain time of year, you know? Horror can be seasonal. I can watch horror anytime, but certain movies, I think, fare better in different seasons, you know?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I could watch Return of the Living Dead any time, but Halloween is just so synonymous with fucking October, November that it almost feels weird, like you said, watching it in July.
Like The Beyond, right? I saw that in the theater on a date in 1998 when Quentin Tarantino reissued it, that Rolling Thunder Pictures.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. It played at the Angelica, I think, actually.
Okay.
And man, I actually hadn't seen it before that. I'd seen Zombie, and I knew, you know, like I hadn't had my first DVD player yet, and I was just kind of really like getting super into the Italian stuff back then. I was a little late to the game, in my opinion, for Italy. Although a lot of people even found out even later than that. But seeing that in a theater, man, holy shit, that was amazing. Like,
I can imagine.
One of my favorite horror movies ever. It's definitely my favorite Fulci movie. But that I could watch pretty much any time of year.
Anytime, yeah. Yeah, Fulci had great work.
It absolutely scares me. Like, it's like The Shining. The moment you hear that music in The Beyond, and the moment you hear the music in The Shining, I'm instantly like at unease. But it's a good unease, you know?
Yeah, well, because to me, like when I watch a movie like Halloween, it just brings me back to that watching it as a kid. I don't know what it is. Like I don't know. I just get transported back. I don't feel like I'm an adult watching it. You know?
Yeah, but with Beyond, though, I just feel like that ending of that movie is like, that's what hell would look like.
Oh, absolutely. And did you saw The Void, right?
Yeah, and it reminded me of it too. Like,
absolutely.
Definitely like The Beyond. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a combination of movies. The Beyond is one of them. Obviously.
Hellraiser.
And Nightbreed and The Thing.
Assault.
And yeah, it's like 10 movies, that movie, in a way. But one of the most prominent movies, I think, as an influence to me has got to be The Beyond. Like, There's just something about it, you know. Some people think it's cheesy. I just think people like that are just so divorced from like the Italian movies of that era. Like, I don't know. Look, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. You know what I'm saying? But if it is your thing, then you fucking love it. You know?
I mean, yeah, it's at a certain point, you know, there's an era. We're so far past that time that it was made. When you put a movie like that on, just embrace it for what it is. You know?
Yeah. Like some people overanalyze, or they think it's hilarious. I don't think there's nothing really hilarious in that movie to me. I don't know. I don't laugh.
Well,
when I watch that movie.
if you go to fucking Nighthawk, like, and you sit there with a bunch of fucking hipsters that fucking think these movies are cool, like me and Anthony, you know, we went to go see Maniac Cop. William Lustig showed it over at Nighthawk in Brooklyn. And, like, we're watching fucking Maniac Cop, and these people, like, they're laughing at certain scenes. And, like, listen, certain things are funny, but, like, yo, it's not that funny. Relax, you know?
It's not that funny, number one. I don't really love Maniac Cop. I love Maniac.
Okay,
Maniac Cop is okay. Some people love it. I think it's okay.
Well, the second one is better than the first.
The movie to be howling out loud over? No, probably not.
What about the remake to Maniac? What'd you think of that?
I really liked it.
Wasn't that great?
Very, very fucked up. As fucked up as the original, just in the modern sense. And they almost like an added fucked up components to it. Like it almost really makes it like, it doesn't make it tame, because Maniac is not tame. It is fucked up.
Yes.
But it just upped the ante, like, in a few ways. You know what I'm saying?
Just the scalpings looked so ridiculously real, and the soundtrack, and what really worked, because when I heard Elijah Wood was attached to it, I was like, I almost had a heart attack. I'm thinking, like,
a lot of people were very not into that until they saw the movie.
Until they saw the POV. And it made sense. It's like, you know, when he got chumped in the bathroom, like, all these things made so much sense. It's like, holy shit, like, what a brilliant fucking idea.
It's funny, although some people have thought, you know, this is not a popular opinion either, but if someone wanted to remake certain Giallo films, right, I actually wouldn't be opposed to it at all.
Suspiria?
Well, that's not a Giallo to me, but that's a supernatural horror film. However, I'm okay with that being remade. I'm actually okay with it because it looks like it's going to be very different, and very different in a way that it's going to make it its own special movie just based on the fucking trailer alone, in my opinion, number one. But some of the other ones, right, just some of the ones that are just kind of just basic thrillers that just have these sleazy components or have some horror components to them, why not remake some of the lesser ones to shine the light on the original or shine the light on the genre? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm talking about.
With certain things, I agree. Like, we had on Damien Maffei from the movie The Strangers on one of the episodes, and, you know, we kept, I would say jokingly, but he was kind of serious, but not really, but he was talking about remaking The Mutilator, which is such a random.
Yeah. Now that's kind of, that movie. Some people seem to think, I need to see that again. I've seen that movie.
It's terrible.
I find it to be very good at all.
I just remember the cover. That's all I remember.
Maybe it would work better as a new movie with improvement. That's what he's getting at.
Yes, that's what that's what he was getting at. He was getting at that the plot is so fucking ridiculous. And it was just one of those random things that everyone saw. Everyone remembers the cover, that you could improve upon it because it was just so, even like the theme song, like the spring break theme song, like
going on a fall break. Yes. Spring break. Yeah. Hilarious. Right.
Like it was like straight out of a sitcom. At the end of the movie, after, like, you know, that horrible ending for that dude, it's amazing. But, like, I saw it so many times as a kid, and as a kid it was effective. But then as I got older, I was like, wow, this is fucking not good.
This is not a good movie.
But okay, so to finish up here, I know the last episode was the last episode you did Terrifier.
Yes, and Hereditary. And
Hereditary.
I'm a Chiller theater guy. I go to that one every year for like the last almost 20 years. And the dude's going to be at Chiller in October.
Yes, yep.
I'm definitely going to go to that.
Yeah, we had Damian Leone, the director, on the show. Super cool. I think he's from Staten Island. We did a Skype with him, and so we're actually taking the podcast name and the Horror Nerds group as well, and we're going to show a double feature.
Oh, when is that?
That's September 14th in Huntington at the Cinema Arts Center. We're going to do Terrifier and Strangers to Pray at Night.
Yeah, I didn't see Strangers 2. I got to fucking see that.
Did you like the first one?
Yes, I did, actually.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, again, though. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it's different, you know. It's very 80s centric. Like, it just feels very retro, and, you know, it's almost like Alien to Aliens, basically, because the first Strangers was very tense. This one's a little bit more abrasive, but the visuals and the soundtrack, it's like a Kim Wilde special. There's so many of those. But September 14th, I know that you live in Brooklyn, but if for some reason you find your way out.
No, I'll try my best, man. I mean, that's fucking awesome, man. You guys need to go to Chiller. It's fun. I don't know if you've ever been to it.
Well, Parker does.
I've been. Yeah, it's been a while, but probably 3-4 years ago. I'm going to Monster Mania this weekend, so that should be a good time.
I want to try to go to that too. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do want to go.
Yeah, I got to go just because I never met Robert Englund and Nick Castle. Those are going to be my two guys to hit up.
Awesome. Yeah, it's funny. Monster Mania is one of those things I've been to like 2-3 times. But I've been to every single Chiller for 18 years.
Wow.
Twice a year. So.
What was your problem with the Halloween trailer, by the way?
Showed way too much.
Okay.
I thought it showed him with the whole movie. And I felt like it didn't look like it offered anything new at all. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm going to see it. I can't wait to see it. I want it to be great. But I just feel like it gave away a lot.
It did.
And I don't like the Michael is not her brother. I don't know why they did away with that exactly. Because that actually takes away a lot of the reasoning for all of this. You know what I'm saying? Then why the hell is he going after her? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why her? You know, if it's not his sister.
Maybe
you know
they'll explain it, but maybe they had to ignore the second one because technically, I guess he died in a bowl of flames,
right?
With no eyeballs.
They could have acknowledged that, and you know what I'm saying, like, there's ways around that. Come on, that's in the horror world, we know there's ways around that kind of death, even that, which might have made it a bit hokey. I almost feel like it's very risky taking that element out. Unless it's going to be reintroduced and we're all being duped or something, but that doesn't seem like it's the case, you know.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I mean, they're doing a good job because everyone's kind of like really anticipating it now, and I think it's going to do very well because, like, what was the seriously, Resurrection? Resurrection was the worst.
No, Resurrection's terrible. It's a piece of garbage. But the thing is,
the worst.
I don't know, man. This has to be just better than Resurrection, guys.
It's gotta be.
You know what I'm saying? It needs to be more than that, and I hope it is just way more than just better than Resurrection. You know?
Oh, are you kidding me? It better be that. Resurrection is arguably the worst horror sequel of all time.
Probably is.
I can't think of another one.
I would put Jason X up there, but I think Resurrection's even worse than that.
Resurrection is worse than Jason X. You know, Troll 2, like all those, like it doesn't matter. Like I'm telling you, like what was that, Carnosaur 2?
Oh,
Carnosaur 2.
All right, cool. So, thank you for doing this, and
thank you, man. Anybody wants to check out the band on social media, it's facebook.com/inhuman or facebook.com/thelaststand NYHC. Both bands have all of our shit on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, all the usual suspects and all that shit. So,
and check out the podcast too. It's fun. Obviously,
Necromaniacs podcast. We're available wherever podcasts are available.
I just hit.
New one is coming soon.
For what?
Not sure what we're covering, but it is coming soon. Not sure. It's always a surprise.
Yes, it. Oh, and real quick, because you and I both saw Meg. You liked Meg, right?
I did. You know what? I mean, I think some people, what did they want? Gone with the Wind? I mean, it was a fun shark movie. Like, what did they want? Like, you know, or like fucking Midnight Cowboy? Like, what the fuck these people want? Like,
I don't know.
It's a shark movie. It's a CGI shark movie in the summertime. It's fucking fun. No, I mean,
it was fun. I went there with the lowest expectations. Somebody in some thread said it was. Phil Capone said it was Jurassic Park under, you know, in the sea, and I was thinking like, yeah, that's actually kind of what it was.
Dude, it had some beautiful imagery.
Beautiful. The beginning, right?
Camera work, and like they spent some money on this movie. I think they had to have spent some fucking money on this movie.
The beginning when they're going in the water and then they're in these things, the technology that they have, gorgeous. Her like just that whole thing that they're on that station.
That station was sick, and I loved when the shark ate the other shark. I mean, there's some great moments in the movie, you know?
Yeah, it was fun, definitely. The only thing I could have done without, I mean, the acting, some of the acting was terrible. Like the Asian actors.
I mean, like, some of the reasoning and some of the plot, like some of the little things or whatever. I mean, but I kind of didn't care about that.
No.
I didn't really care. Like,
yeah, no, I overlooked it because it visually was like it's a fun movie. Like you go there, you fucking eat your fucking popcorn.
Right.
And that's it. So, all right, cool. Listen,
people wanted like Jaws. I mean, Jaws is Jaws. It's like it started that genre. Jaws was like a drama, and it was the 70s, and it was a young Steven Spielberg. Okay, I don't even know who directed this movie. Okay, so it's like, come on, man.
Jaws.
It doesn't even matter who directed this movie.
Jaws is perfect. Unfortunately, it's never going to be like Jaws is Jaws. Like you could watch Jaws today, and it covers everything.
Still holds up.
It's so goddamn good. I don't know how or why, but it's fucking just great. Like you care about the characters. You can't top Jaws. So just stop.
I mean, Jaws is just a great movie. Period. You know
it's a great movie. Yeah.
But you know what? People out there see the Meg. It's fun.
All right, man.
Thank you so much, man. Sorry for talking your fucking ears off forever.
No. That's you know, usually we like doing stuff in person, but being on the phone, you know, the only thing is like sometimes, you know, like I just hate talking over each other. So it was good that you kind of just did your thing. Like you gave so much. So when I edit this down, and there's probably going to be like few edits, you know, I'll just bump up You killed it. Everything that you did, like your life is interesting. Everything that you do, you're still making music. You're still, like everything that you do, I admire from afar, man. So thank you for doing it.
You too, bro. You're a talented guy. Your podcast is cool. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for the support, man.
All right, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a great night, guys.
Later,
Cheers.
man.